Friends, today we will reveal the secret history of Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day! You hear that everywhere, don't you? It's all about flowers and chocolates. But what if I told you that behind all of that, there's a secret history? A story of rebellion, defiance, and, well, some pretty clever corporate manipulation that you've probably never heard. So let's dig in and uncover the real story. And I'm not kidding about the scale of this thing. Every single year on this one day, we're talking billions of dollars spent all across the globe. Just poof, gone on chocolates, flowers, and cards. It's become this massive commercial event, like an economic powerhouse, cleverly disguised as just a simple celebration of love. But, it kind of makes you stop and wonder, right? Where did this whole tradition actually start? Like, what are the real roots of Valentine's Day? And maybe more importantly, with all that money being thrown around, who's really cashing in on all of it?
Okay, so to get those answers, we've got to jump in our time machine. We're going way back, nearly 2,000 years ago, right into the heart of the Roman Empire. And trust me, this is not a story about cute greeting cards. No, this is a story about power, about war, and about some serious defiance.
So let me introduce you to the main man at the time, Emperor Claudius II. And listen, this guy was not your typical emperor, born with a silver spoon. No way. He was a former soldier, a wrestler even, who had to literally claw his way to the top. And when he got there, he looked at his empire and saw a huge problem. His tough, battle-hardened army was going soft. And he thought he knew exactly why. He traced the whole problem back to one thing: marriage. Yes, seriously. In his mind, as soon as his soldiers got married, they just lost their fighting edge. They started caring more about their families back home than about fighting and dying for the empire. So his solution? Simple. He just banned marriage for all young soldiers across the entire empire. Pretty brutal, right? And, on one hand, the emperor got what he wanted, a more focused army. But it came at a terrible cost to Roman society. With marriage suddenly off the table for a whole generation of men, the empire saw this shocking spike in what they called immorality and even sexual violence. Basically, Rome was staring down a massive social crisis that it had created itself. But this is where the story takes a turn. This is where our hero steps onto the scene. He was a humble Christian priest, and he was watching all of this social decay happen. He just decided, you know what? I can't stand by and watch this emperor's law destroy my community anymore. And his name was Valentine. So this priest, Saint Valentine, he decided he had to do something. He started a kind of secret rebellion. And it was this single act of defiance that would, believe it or not, eventually become the legend that we now call Valentine's Day. So what did he do? Well, working in the shadows, Valentine started performing secret weddings for these soldiers, which was a direct slap in the face to the emperor. But of course, a secret that big, it's not going to last forever. He was found out, arrested by Roman soldiers, and thrown in jail. And while he was in his cell, something amazing happened. The very couples he had married started leaving flowers for him outside the prison, just a little sign of their gratitude. Then, on the night before he was scheduled to be executed, he wrote one final letter, and the very next day, on February 14th, he was killed for his defiance. And that very last letter he wrote, the way he signed off, it was just 3 simple words: from your Valentine. And that phrase, from a condemned man's final letter, would somehow become a global tradition. It's pretty wild when you think about it. But here's where things get really complicated. This created a huge conflict. Because now, on February 14th, you had the Christians honoring Saint Valentine, a day all about promoting marriage and fighting against immorality. But at the exact same time, the Romans were celebrating their own pagan festival on that very same day, a festival known for being, well, pretty wild and shameless. So you have these two totally opposite celebrations clashing on the same date. Now, you'd think the story would end there, but it gets even stranger. For the next 1,000 years, a full millennium, Valentine's Day was just this minor Christian festival, something only a few people in Europe even knew about. It was basically forgotten. But then 2 massive world events happened that would take this obscure little holiday and blast it onto the global stage. I mean, just look at this timeline. It's kind of crazy how long this day just sat there, totally dormant. For over 1,000 years, it was just a historical footnote. And then, bam, Shakespeare mentions it in his plays, and suddenly it's on the cultural map. But even that wasn't enough. It really took the shared global trauma of the world wars to give the day the kind of emotional power it has for us today. Yeah, think about it like this. Shakespeare made the day cool, but the world wars made it essential. Suddenly, you have millions of people separated from their loved ones, from their families, and soldiers. Sending a little message of love wasn't just a nice tradition anymore. For many, it was an absolute lifeline. And of course, someone was watching all of this raw emotion playing out from the sidelines. A pretty savvy American businessman saw a golden opportunity. And his company, a little business called Hallmark, was about to step in and transform Valentine's Day forever.
See, during the wars, Hallmark's business just exploded. Selling greeting cards was booming. But the second the wars ended, their sales fell off a cliff. People were back together, they didn't need to send cards as much, so Hallmark found itself in deep trouble and they needed a new plan, fast.
And their solution was, well, it was a pretty ruthless marketing strategy. They decided to target women directly, using every tool they had: newspapers, radio, the new medium of TV. And the ads were all designed to create this feeling of insecurity. The message was clear. If you don't get a gift on Valentine's Day, it means you're not really loved. Maybe you're even worthless. It was deeply manipulative, and it worked like a charm.
Once other companies saw how successful Hallmark was, everybody wanted a piece of the pie. Cadbury came out with the first heart-shaped boxes of chocolates, florist associations started pushing huge bouquets, and of course, diamond companies like De Beers got in on the action, marketing jewelry. They basically created a modern Valentine's recipe, a checklist of stuff you had to buy to prove you actually loved someone. And all of that, well, it brings us right up to today. The holiday is now a commercial giant. But this tradition, which was so carefully engineered for profit, has come with some really dark modern consequences. And here is probably one of the darkest consequences of the modern holiday. All of that manufactured pressure has a very real, very human cost. It's tragic, but Valentine's Day has actually become one of the leading days of the entire year for depression and even suicide. For so many people, the pressure to live up to this commercialized ideal is just, it's too much.
I mean, the irony here is just staggering, isn't it? This day started as a rebellion against immorality. It was a fight to protect the idea of marriage. And now, today, it's been completely re-engineered to create anxiety and pressure us into buying things just to prove our worth. And it's all for corporate profit. And this is exactly why so many people today are so skeptical of the holiday. And we're talking people from all kinds of faiths, including a lot of Christians. They look at it and see that corporations have completely hijacked Saint Valentine's original mission. It's almost like they've turned a day that was about sacred commitment full circle, right back into something that looks an awful lot like that wild, shameless pagan festival it was originally meant to replace.
So all of this leaves us with a pretty challenging question, doesn't it? When we celebrate February 14th, are we really freely expressing love? Or have we all just become puppets in a game, manipulated by billion-dollar companies that took a powerful story of rebellion and faith and twisted it into a machine for making money? Something to think about.
To watch more such explainer videos, subscribe our channel. Thank you.